If you had asked me when I was young if I believed in fate, I would have said ridiculous. But now, as I stand on the brink of the collapse of everything I held dear, I'm almost ready to believe that a higher power saw it coming. In some twisted way, I even think it was a natural outcome. I married Emma when we were 18. She was full of life and laughter and warm light. Next to her, I felt not just a man, but a real lucky man. Later, we had a daughter, whom we named Lily. I put everything I could into our family, trying to be a good husband and father, something I never had myself. 25 years of marriage is a huge part of life. The arguments, the reconciliations, the daily grind. I didn't realize how quickly that sense of stability can crumble. How fragile illusions can be when you realize that all this time you were one step away from losing everything you thought was important. It all began, as it often does, with the most ordinary day. October 12th. I remember it clearly. The air was warm, the sun was blazing, but everything was going smoothly in the office. I had closed a few deals, finished all my meetings early, and decided to go home. Emma and I were getting ready for a 25th anniversary, which was due on October 15th, and I wanted to surprise her. I wanted to plan a little vacation to make us feel young again. As I walked into the living room, I saw them. Emma was standing at the counter, and Lily was sitting at the table. They were silent, but there was tension in the air. I set down my briefcase, said hello nonchalantly, and asked what was going on. Emma pointed to a chair. "Daniel, please sit down." Lily, with an almost triumphant look, said, "Dad, we need to talk." I sat down, resting my elbows on the table. "I'm listening." Emma spoke softly but firmly. "In 3 days, we have our 25th anniversary. Daniel, I need a change." I felt my heart clench. I've been thinking about what I want out of life. These years have been good, but I want a chance to explore something different. "What do you mean, something different?" I asked, and my voice sounded surprisingly even. "Mom wants an open marriage," Lily blurted out gleefully. "And I think it's a great idea. All modern couples do it, Dad. The physical things don't matter. What matters is trust." The last sentence, about trust, was almost insulting. I turned to my daughter. "Are you saying that all modern couples do that?" She nodded like she was an expert on the subject. "You're so old-fashioned. Love isn't just physical. If you truly love each other, you'll let each other be free." "Emma," I turned to my wife, trying to contain my anger. "Are you serious?" "Daniel, I'm just fed up. I'm not saying I'm unhappy. I'm just sick of doing the same things, sleeping with the same man. I want something new." She said it with such indifference that I wanted to get up and leave, but I stayed, tapping my fingers on the table, an old habit from my time in the army. Count, breathe, don't let them see you're broken. I said, "So, your plan is that you'll go out with other men and I'll stay home and wave at you when you leave?" Lily hissed. "Dad, stop being so dramatic. You can date too. No one's stopping you, but let's be honest, it would be a challenge for you. Just accept that times have changed." She chuckled. "You'll probably need some kind of app or something, but you can figure it out." I clasped my hands together, exhaled, and asked, "Do you have someone already?" I looked straight into Emma's eyes. She hesitated for just a moment. "It was Mike," she said quietly. "Mike Reed, the owner of that cute little restaurant on Main Street," Emma said quietly. Lily leaned forward, excited. "Oh, Mom, what taste you have! It's so cool and it's perfect for you." Something inside me squeezed at those words. Mike Reed. Of course I remembered him. I had brought business associates there so many times. Now he was obviously part of the conspiracy, and I was shocked. I forced myself to speak in an even tone. "I see you've planned this well," I began. "Lily, are you saying that if Mike goes out with your mother, you're okay with it?" She smiled lightly. "Of course I'm not. Stop being such a dinosaur, Dad." I stood up and walked over to the bar that stood in the corner of the living room. It gave me a chance to take a calm, quiet breath. I poured myself a whiskey on the rocks, but Emma and Lily seemed puzzled by my calmness. "Emma," I said finally, turning to them, "you realize this isn't a trivial matter." She nodded, but her jaw sagged faintly. "I've never been so sure of anything," she replied. I took a sip of whiskey. "Okay, I'm in." Both of them froze. Lily couldn't hide a snide smile. "Are you really okay with an open marriage?" "Yes," I replied. "On one condition." "There can't be any conditions," Emma began, but I interrupted her by looking directly at both of them. "This house belongs to me, by the marriage contract you and I signed, Emma. At my father's insistence," I said. "You both want to live openly, that's fine, but I will determine the rules for living on my property. If you're not happy with that, you'll find another home and another life." Emma's eyes widened, a flicker of concern in them. Lily tried to brush off my words with a chuckle. "Dad, half of this house is Mom's by law." But Emma raised her hand. "That's enough, Lily," she said in a low voice. "He's right. We signed a prenup. The house belongs to Daniel." I saw Lily's stiff confidence evaporate. "But you're not going to kick us out, are you, Dad?" I didn't answer. I just walked out, leaving them to ponder. Later that night, I stood outside the living room listening to their conversation. "Old habits die hard," Lily whispered. "See? He'll never kick you out. He's bluffing. You're the love of his life."
Emma, however, wasn't so sure. "You don't know your father. He can be ruthless when forced. Do you remember that he's an ex-Marine? I only know half of what he did in Iraq, and that's enough to scare me." Lily pouted. "He's not going to do anything. He's just an annoyed old man who's in for a big surprise. We'll see what happens next." At that moment, I thought, they have no idea what darkness I discovered in myself during those war years. Something cold and methodical. I tried to hide it under expensive suits and ties, but they, without knowing it themselves, lit the fuse. I went upstairs, letting the tension fill the house. If you decide to challenge a man cornered, you'd better be on your guard. The next day, I went straight to my lawyer, Stephen Riggs. We were in the same class in college, but Stephen was always a head above the rest. He was the kind of guy who didn't just read the law, but saw through it like X-rays. I trusted him countless times and knew he would welcome a challenging task that required not just knowledge, but real skill. Stephen was a man who could find a loophole where others saw a dead end. He was known for his cold-bloodedness and a brilliant mind that worked like a Swiss watch. He didn't make empty promises, but was straightforward about what could be done and what couldn't. And most importantly, he always won. I was sure he was the only one who could help me in this difficult situation. When I told him I needed a post-nuptial agreement to block Emma's possible claims, he bluntly asked, "Why not just get a divorce?" "That would be too easy," I replied. "I want to see how far they'll go. Let them feel the consequences of their proposal instead of just quietly walking away as if nothing happened." He grinned. "You're a bigger cynic than your old man was. Okay, let's look at those terms." I laid out my plan. It was a firm post-nuptial agreement that spelled out property rights, property disposition, monthly STD testing, a disclaimer of responsibility for children born to outside lovers, and a complete ban on extramarital partners entering my home. Stephen, reading my notes, let out a low whistle. "You're going for the very jugular, my friend," he said. I remembered my father's stoic face. "I'm just setting the boundaries they say they need. Let them reacquaint themselves with reality." 2 days later, we gathered in Stephen's office. Me, Emma, Lily, and Emma's newly hired attorney, a tall, elegant woman named Diane. The squinted expression on Diane's face grew sterner with each page she read. When she reached the last section, she slammed the papers down on the table with a clatter. Diane began to explain that if Emma filed for divorce while this open marriage agreement was in effect, she would forfeit all possible alimony or spousal support. She can't claim the house, she can't claim the business, and she's forbidden from bringing any partner, including Mike or anyone else, into the marital home. Emma frowned sternly. "Daniel, that's too much." She looked at me. "No support if you leave me?"
I replied, "Why would I fund this arrangement? I'm just honoring what we agreed to before we got married. My father's prenup was thorough, but this one clarifies the open-ended agreement parts. In addition, you pay your share of dating expenses. Your share of the household expenses stays with me, but your little extracurriculars are on you." Lily spoke in a harsh voice. "You're humiliating her. Dad, that's disgusting." "No," I said, and turned to look her in the eye. "Your mother is free to do what she wants. You told me yourself that love isn't about money. I'm sure she can handle a date or two, and if Mike is as well off as you claim, he won't let her pay for everything. Right?" Emma exhaled slowly, then said with forced calmness, "Okay, I'll sign. Diana, let's just wrap this up. It's unorthodox, bordering on unconscionable, but I'm fine with it. He's trying to intimidate me, but I'm not." Lily clasped her hands tighter across her chest and stared at her mother. "Are you sure?" Emma nodded. "I'm sure." Stephen slid the papers over and Emma signed, looking at me defiantly, as if her stroke of the pen was an act of rebellion. Part of me almost admired this boldness, but another part of me wondered how blind she had been to think she would retain a real advantage. For the next few weeks, I worked on autopilot in the office. In the office, everything went along. Deals, expansions, meetings, calls. But outside of work, something new awakened a cold, analytical anger in me. Emma wasted no time and immediately organized a date with Mike. Lily encouraged her by calling me a laggard. She went so far as to laugh at me at dinner one night. "Hey, Dad, you should try Tinder. I hear even old people can find something on there." I kept my composure. When the day of Emma's date arrived, I planned my move in advance. If Emma wanted to get Mike Reed, the owner of a fancy restaurant, I was ironically determined to see if Madeline, his daughter, would be interested in some company. She was 22 years old. Yes, she was the same age as my daughter, but also an adult with her own right to live. We had socialized a few times at different events. Madeline knew exactly who I was, and she didn't seem to like her father's arrogance. She seemed to be looking for an excuse to rebel against him. And to my surprise, she accepted an invitation to dinner. The night Emma was to meet Mike, I took Madeline to a private fundraiser for veterans at a luxury hotel. I had a personal connection to the cause. I introduced Madeline to my coworkers. She turned out to be more than just an easygoing student. She was smart and held her own in conversations about global finance and the complexities of business. People looked at us, some with confusion, others with sneers, but I didn't care. I wanted to show Emma and Lily that if they thought I was too old for dating, they were wrong, and word of that was spreading fast. The next morning, when I got home, Lily was yelling in the living room. "You went on a date with Mike's daughter. What is wrong with you?" Her fists were clenched. I shook off my jacket, ignoring her. "I took an adult to a charity event," I said calmly. "Your mother spent the night with Mike at the hotel. She's free to do as she pleases, and I'm free to do the same." Lily's eyes burned. "You're sick. She's my age." I turned around and faced her. "You're telling me that age is just numbers when it comes to your mother, but it's unacceptable when it comes to me? What an interesting double standard." She wanted to reply something, but there were no words. Instead, she let out a disappointed groan, turned, and stomped off to her room. Emma never brought it up that morning. Though her face was pale and I could feel the tension in her posture, she went about her business with a forced smile. The next major confrontation occurred on a day off. I was sitting in my chair in the living room going over the latest financial reports when Emma walked in, red-eyed and furious. She stood in front of me with her arms crossed over her chest. "I want to end this marriage," she hissed. "Enough of this game. You're disrespecting me, humiliating me in front of everyone by dating Mike's daughter. I didn't sign up for this." My gaze flickered to her eyes. "You wanted an open marriage, Emma. That's what an open marriage is." She tossed the stack of envelopes onto the coffee table. "I've had enough of this, Daniel. I can't stand it if my daughter sees me humiliated. I can't stand it if my own husband flaunts himself with a young woman. Okay, this is humiliating. Let's end this farce." Lily nodded vigorously. "Mom's right. This definitely wasn't according to plan. You're making us look ridiculous." I forced myself not to laugh. "According to plan? You thought you could just waltz in, tell me you were having an affair, and I would sit at home like a convenient ATM and pay for your escapades while you enjoyed the company of your new boyfriend? You assumed I wouldn't resist." "This isn't war." Emma's voice shook with a mixture of anger and despair. "Or at least, it wasn't supposed to be. Okay, let's just say that I made a mistake. I don't want Mike anymore. I just want to go back to the way things were. Can we do that?" "No," I said simply, crossing my legs. "We're not shutting anything down." Emma's eyes clouded over with confusion. "What do you mean?" "You wanted an open marriage. We have a post-nuptial agreement that states that this agreement is in effect until we both agree to dissolve it. And I don't agree, so the agreement remains in effect." She stood and trembled. "You're punishing me," she said in a grating voice, and I just shrugged. Lily spoke up. "Dad, stop it. She said she doesn't want it anymore. I mean, that's reasonable. Didn't you love Mom at all?" My gaze flickered to Lily, and a wave of disappointment rose in me, bitter and heavy. "You think love is a one-way street? Where was your mother's love when she asked me to humiliate her, essentially publicly, with her partner? Have any of you ever once considered my feelings?"
They stared at me, unable to answer. I grabbed my wallet, stood up, and walked to the hallway. "I'm leaving," I said. "Don't wait up for me. I have a date." Emma's face drooped, and Lily just stared, like she wanted to throw an insult at me, but couldn't find the words. 2 days after this altercation, Lily tried to intervene again, cornering me in the hallway before breakfast. "Mom cries every night. She's miserable." I headed toward the kitchen, keeping my composure. "She's miserable because her plan failed. Are you telling me you're worried about her mental health, or are you just upset that you had to witness this?" Lily resolutely stood in my way. "Dad, just stop messing around with Madeline if you want to save the marriage. Or, if you want a divorce, do it, but don't torture Mom like this." I hissed, ignoring the surge of rage in my chest. "You didn't mind me being tortured, or were you amused by the thought of your father losing his dignity?" She shuddered. "That's not fair. This was about empowerment." "Spare me," I interrupted sharply. "Speaking of your expenses, what's up with your car lease? Isn't it going to expire soon? Who's going to pay to renew it?" She frowned, as if the abrupt change of topic had caught her off guard. "I don't have any money, Dad," Lily whispered. "Then you'd better deal with it. I'm not paying for you anymore. Same goes for your ridiculous credit card debt and college fees. Get a job or find another simpleton. Maybe Mike or your mother's new lovers will be generous. Who knows?" Her face went pale. "Are you serious? You can't just cut me off like that. I'm your daughter." I carefully set my coffee mug on the table. "You sided with your mother. That's fine. Now you're going to have to live with the consequences of that." Lily gritted her teeth in annoyance. "Are you going to make me beg?" "Try to work at it," I said coldly. "Ever heard of it?" "You monster!" she shouted, disappearing down the hallway. 2 weeks crawled like caterpillars. Lily's bills were piling up. She had a rental car, college loan debt, and no steady job. She spent her days texting friends and waiting for a miracle. Perhaps she expected me to give in.
And finally, the bomb went off. I came home from work and found Lily on my doorstep. Furious tears were rolling down her face. "I got a letter saying they're going to take the car away," she hissed, shoving a piece of paper in my face. "You can't do that. I need my car. I can't just not go to class or show up somewhere on a bus like a loser." I sighed, stepping around her and unlocking the front door. "If you think you're too proud to ride the bus, that's your problem." She followed me inside, gesturing wildly. "Dad, you always said you'd support me, that I wouldn't have to worry about money while in college. Are you really going to go back on your word?" I frowned, turning to her. "My condition for paying your bills was that you would at least respect me, and you and your mother tried to humiliate me. So yes, I retract my words. If you can't handle the new reality, you're free to leave." "I can't pay any of these debts. I have about $300 in my bank account." I headed for the living room. "That's not my problem."
Ask your mother's lover. Maybe Mike will write you a check. Or one of your mother's future bed partners, I threw in. Lily gasped in shock. "That's cruel." I gave her a cold, strained smile. "I'm only following your logic, dear daughter. Mom is free. You're free. All those modern rights. Isn't that what you wanted?" She slapped her hand on the couch in annoyance. "Why are you being so nasty?" "Am I?" A new voice sounded. It was Emma, coming out of the hallway. Her face was frail and she crossed her arms over her chest. I turned to my wife. "I'm not punishing anyone. I just don't reward disloyalty." Emma's eyes darted to Lily, who was on the verge of sobbing. She softened her tone. "Honey, go upstairs and I'll talk to him." Lily gave me another glare and then hurried away, angrily brushing past her mother. Emma waited until she was gone and then looked me squarely in the eye. "Okay, the open marriage fiasco was a terrible idea, but now you're just being sadistic. She's your daughter. She's young. She doesn't realize what she's gotten herself into." I shrugged. She's old enough to get involved in an affair. She's old enough to deal with the consequences. She clenched her fists. "Okay, if that's how you want to deal with Lily, fine. But you and I can have a civilized conversation. She swallowed. "I'm done with Mike. He turned out to be a chatty bastard. He's already canceled the last few dates. You got what you wanted. I'm humiliated, but can we stop this madness?" My jaw clenched. 2 weeks ago, you tried to honor the same request. I told you no. So what makes you think anything has changed? Tears came to her eyes. "Because I can't do this anymore. I can't see you with Madeline anymore. She's the same age as my daughter. I can't bear the thought of you sleeping with her. It messes with my head. Just let's be a couple again, even if it's not perfect." I stared at her. "No. You opened that door. You're the one holding it open. We're past the point of no return." She sank down onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. "You're so hateful," she whispered. "Where is the man I married?" "I said he died the day you asked for an open marriage," and walked away. A month passed. Lily, tired of my refusal to pay for her life, moved out. She moved in with friends. Emma, left behind, sank deeper and deeper into despair and spent her days half-dressed, wandering around the house as if searching for something. Sometimes I would see her poring over old photographs, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. One day she cornered me on the back porch. Her eyes were puffy. "Daniel, there's something I have to tell you. I went to the doctors," she said quietly. "I'm not feeling well." I raised an eyebrow, noticing how much weight she'd lost. The bones in her shoulders protruded in a way they hadn't before. "I tested positive for an STD," she admitted, her face turning crimson. "I got it from Mike. I didn't even think he'd do that. Anyway, I'm on medication. It's treatable, but humiliating. So hope you're happy you got your revenge." My face twitched with guilt or pity, I couldn't tell, but my voice remained controlled. "I'm not happy, Emma. That's a consequence of your choices.
Do you think I set this up? No, you asked for an open marriage. I agreed. And then you rushed straight into bed with the first man who charmed you? A tear rolled down her cheek. I get it. You hate me, Emma hissed, wiping away a tear. I just hope you're using protection, because STDs are no joke. I stared at the fence, at the horizon, at everything but her gaze. Madeline is not some affair, but thanks for caring. My voice was flat. I said nothing, and she turned and walked away. I stayed there for a long time, letting the fall breeze swirl around me. Part of me felt the faint pity that she was going through this. The other part just kept repeating, she brought this on herself. And the situation escalated again. 3 weeks later, Lily returned to the house unexpectedly. She was furious, slamming the door behind her. I was in the kitchen reading emails. I have outstanding loans. I can't cover them, Dad. You have to pay them off. I didn't take my eyes off my phone. I owe nothing, I replied. I told you I'm no longer your personal piggy bank. Her eyes darted around the room. Mom's too broke to help. She barely has enough to pay her own bills, let alone mine. That asshole Mike has disappeared off the radar. She can't even ask him for help. I put the phone down and met her gaze. You're an adult now. You'll figure it out on your own. Snorted. You're going to let your daughter go broke because of debt? You're going to ruin my credit, my future, just because you harbor a grudge? No, I said. You're the one who ruined your credit. You sided with your mother, sneering at me as if I were some kind of relic. Well, I guess that relic doesn't want to sponsor your lifestyle anymore. She lunged at me like she wanted to hit me, but I tensed, preparing to defend myself. Don't push me. I warned you. My voice was quiet. If you want, you can go ask your mother's lover for bail, or find another job besides the half-hearted attempts you've been making. If your friends won't give you a loan, that's not my problem either. Okay, she spat. I'll remember that. When you get old and you need someone to take care of you, don't expect me to lift a finger. I arched my eyebrow. Don't worry, I'm perfectly capable of paying for my retirement on my own. She frowned, then turned and ran away. I could hear her furious footsteps down the hall. About 5 minutes later, the front door slammed shut. She was gone again, leaving me in a quiet house.
In the weeks that followed, the litany of misery around me was evident. Emma continued to lose weight and seemed physically exhausted. She rarely left the house, and when she did, she was a shadow of herself. From time to time, she would make little requests of me. Can we talk? Daniel, please, can I make us dinner so we can talk things over? I never gave up. My attention was turned to Madeline. Initially, my relationship with her was an act of defiance, but somewhere along the line, a sincere affection developed. She was ambitious, working on building her portfolio. We laughed about how twisted our connection was. Her father was dating my wife, and here we were creating something real out of the chaos. I found myself relaxing in her presence in a way I'd never done with Emma. Madeline was warm beyond her years, but direct. One day she asked about Iraq, and for the first time in decades, I told someone about what I'd done there and what it had done to me. She listened without judgment and never used my past or my vulnerabilities against me. As we sipped wine in her apartment, she quietly said, "I'm pregnant." "How far along?" I asked, clutching my chest. "About 8 weeks," Madeline replied, looking me straight in the eye. "You're the father, and I want to keep the baby." A whirlwind of emotions swept over me. Shock, apprehension, a flash of joy, a prick of guilt. "Are you absolutely sure?" She nodded. "Yes, I didn't plan for this, but I'm ready, and I hope you are too." I tensed, trying to remain stoic like my father had taught me, but in that moment I realized I wanted this baby. Part of me wanted to be a father right this time, without the bitterness of a dysfunctional family. "It's okay, Madeline," I finally said. "We'll figure it out." She exhaled in relief. "I just don't want you to think it was revenge on my father."
The mention of Mike made me tense up, but I pushed the thought away and kissed her forehead. Let's not talk about him. Let's worry about us, about the baby. When I got home, I found Emma in the living room. She was sitting hunched over on the couch, staring into the turned-off TV. "Where have you been?" she asked in a dull voice. "With Madeline," I replied. "Daniel," she changed her tone. "Look, I'm sorry about everything that happened, but can we at least decide what to do next? Restore the marriage or file for divorce so I can move on with my life? I can't stand this uncertainty." I stopped on the stairs and turned around. "If we divorce, you'll lose everything and walk away with practically nothing." She nodded tiredly. "Yes, I know, but maybe it's for the best." I looked at her carefully. She looked haggard, her hair had lost its luster, and her cheeks had sunken in. For a split second, I pictured the 18-year-old Emma I'd married. A sadness stirred inside me, but it was fleeting. I said, "We'll talk about it," and went upstairs.
2 months later, Madeline gave birth to a baby boy, whom we named Kevin. The whirlwind of new fatherhood consumed me, eclipsing any remaining thoughts of Emma or Lily. I took more frequent absences from the office with a new purpose, delegating responsibilities to senior managers and focusing on Madeline and the baby. Shortly after Kevin was born, I proposed to her, wanting him to have a stable family. Madeline said yes. We had a simple ceremony after I insisted on signing a new prenup. Part of me chuckled that I was turning into my father. Another part of me recognized that the old man was right to protect what mattered. I couldn't completely ignore Emma, who called me late one night in delirium. "Daniel," she whispered in a trembling voice, I think I made a mistake. I want to see you. I don't feel well. I need you." I stopped her. "Call your parents or call an ambulance if it's an emergency. I have a newborn to take care of. I'm not your savior anymore." She was silent for 5 seconds, and then I heard her burst into tears. I hate you." That was the last time we spoke directly. I filed for divorce a few weeks later. Stephen expedited the process without any fuss or long battles. Emma signed the papers without a fight, perhaps relieved, and soon disappeared, presumably to her family, though I didn't ask. I devoted myself to Madeline and Kevin, creating a new story. I learned from rumors that Emma had gotten a job at a fast food joint making burgers. I walked into that particular McDonald's one afternoon, mostly out of curiosity. I didn't try to talk to her, and she didn't notice me. She was darting between the kitchen and the service area, her hair tied back, her face flushed, but she looked healthier than the last time I'd seen her. Working alone must have taught her what it meant to stand on her own 2 feet. I left with my lunch in my hands, without saying anything. I felt strangely proud that she had at least learned responsibility, but the gap between us was still huge, and I left her to her own devices. 5 years passed. Kevin was a fun, running-around-the-house kid. Madeline and I had a stable life. I never tried to reach out to Emma or Lily. Part of me longed for closure, but another part of me was too immersed in the new reality to dwell on old regrets. Every now and then, through casual acquaintances, I heard that Lily had found another job, that she was renting a small apartment and slowly paying off her loans. There was no reason for me to interfere. She had made her choice long ago. Resisting my money was exactly what she needed. One Sunday morning, the phone rang. I was in the living room helping Kevin lay out his art supplies, and Madeline was drinking coffee in the sunshine. It was Emma's father. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. A few seconds of silence, then a muffled voice sounded. "Daniel," he said quietly, "Emma passed away last night." "How?" "She was living with us, but her health was deteriorating from an infection she got from that lover. Never fully cleared up.
Complications. She's been in the hospital for months. Last night, she just... He stopped talking, his voice shaking. I stood there, clutching the phone tightly, my throat all dry. "I'm sorry for your loss," I finally said. The words were too small for something so final. "Are you okay?" He paused, exhaling noisily. "We're going to be fine. I just thought you should know." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, and thanked him. He didn't say anything else, sighed tiredly, and then the line cut off. I put the phone down, staring at the blank screen. Kevin, meanwhile, was diligently coloring a paper drawing. Madeline was humming softly in the yard, sipping her coffee. I thought about Emma's last days, her slow fading, her tears and regrets. How many times she must have whispered my name in anger or sadness. A whirlwind of conflicting emotions swept over me. Pity, relief, regret, bitterness. But mostly I felt the weight of irreversibility. I realized that once I had crossed certain boundaries, there was no going back. I put the phone down, gently ruffled Kevin's hair. He looked up at me with shining eyes. "Daddy, can I show you something?" "Sure," I said, forcing myself to smile.